what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me, Chris Fry, both of us with the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival. Chris, happy Wicked Week to you.
Why, thank you, Alan.
Only the most hyped.
Happy Wicked Week to you as well.
Thank you. Only the most hyped film marketed film I think I've seen.
You know, that is the one thing that
years.
I don't think has been done is they haven't, Joe Biden has not officially deemed this Wicked Week for the entire country.
Right.
Outside of that, I think that may be the one marketing thing that has
That is
not
one
been
opportunity
done.
that's been missed.
Right.
No, it's just I joke, but not really, because it does feel like that's the film that's everywhere right now.
Agreed.
It's got the toy lines, it's got the cross promotion, it's got the AMC introductions at every movie you go to now. I mean, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
We are planning on reviewing it this weekend, right? We're watching it this weekend.
We're watching it this weekend.
Reviewing
That'll
it.
be our review for next week.
Next week's episode. That's our plan.
That is, yeah.
If all goes well, if I can get tickets, I assume it's going to be a sold and maybe not sold out, but probably close in some places.
Could be.
We'll see. But our plan is next week we will be discussing Wicked. We will not be discussing Wicked anymore today. After that little setup I did.
Fair enough.
Instead, we're going to be focusing our attention on the other big release coming out this weekend. Yes, Chris.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
Let's say one more thing about Wicked. As a public service announcement,
Yeah.
you and I saw a critic screening of the movie that we're going to discuss today, Gladiator II. Mm-hmm. But on our car ride to this critic screening, you and I were discussing Wicked because it's just drilled in our heads. And you reminded me that it is a part one of two parts. So
That's
as
correct.
a public service to our
PSA.
listeners, I want everyone to be aware they haven't really mentioned that in the marketing. So we didn't want everybody to have a Dune moment where they go in and they expect to see a self-contained movie, because this was a self-contained play when it was a musical and and you didn't have to come back 2 nights. Nope, it was done, it was done one shot. So apparently this is a part one of part two. So we don't want anybody to be surprised and end up choking on your popcorn when the end credits roll.
Good call. I think that's the least we can do for our audience is give them that heads up. So it is a part one film, and there will be a part two in about a year or so afterwards. So we will see how that plays with the movie-going audiences this weekend. All right, Chris. Let's turn our attention to the other big release that's coming out this weekend, and we had a chance to see it, and we're going to be reviewing it for you. It is Gladiator II, or Gladiator II. That is the latest film from director Ridley Scott. Obviously, it is a sequel to the blockbuster film Gladiator, which came out in 2000, I believe. Kind of put Russell Crowe on the map as a leading actor and won a Best Picture award along with several other acclaims at the time. It's a big hit, and here we are 24 years later, and we've got the sequel, Gladiator II. So Chris and I will be reviewing that here in a moment for you. And then after that review, we do have some movie news and trailers to talk about for some upcoming movies that we're going to dissect and expound on. Followed by, I do want to talk a little bit about some early Oscar predictions, Chris. So different publications, different groups have been putting out some of their predictions for what they think are going to be the pool of Best Picture nominees. We're just going to hit that Best Picture nominee category today. We may cover some other categories in future episodes as we're kind of leaning into waiting to hear when the announcements are going to be in the first of the year of the nominations. But, we're far enough along in the year. I think we can kind of look retrospectively and say, where do we think we are as far as the Best Picture nominees for this year? Or what do we think that might hold up? So we'll go into that towards the end of the episode. But without further ado, let's go ahead and sound the trumpets. Let's release the CGI animated animals that we have to fight on the Coliseum floor as we get into our review of Gladiator II.
Let's go back to the arena.
Oh, that was nice. Good.
Coliseum, I
Good.
guess.
Coliseum, yeah.
Strength and honor!
It is an art, choosing gladiators. They're usually prisoners of war.
I claim this city for the glory of Rome.
You have something in you. Rage. Never let it go. It will carry you.
With Gladiator II, our summary given to us by IMDb is as follows. After his home is conquered by the tyrannical emperors who now lead Rome, Lucius is forced to enter the Colosseum and must look to his past to find strength to return the glory of Rome to its people. Lucius in this film is played by Mr. Paul Mescal, which has been, kind of a big selling point of the film, him coming off After Sun and what was the other film that he was in? But the name just slipped my mind.
All of Us Strangers.
All of Us Strangers.
All
yeah.
of Us Strangers,
So those
yeah.
two films kind of got him a lot of buzz. But this is like a big, obviously, big film for him to land.
A little bigger budget than the other two films that he's
just
been in.
Tiny bit. So Paul Mescal is the central gladiator of this film because Russell Crowe, yes, he died at the end of the first one. So
Spoiler.
spoiler.
Chris.
So sorry if you haven't seen it from 24 years ago.
old movie. Yeah.
But in this film, new, we have Denzel Washington playing a role that he is kind of taking over the Oliver Reed role a little bit from the first film. I mean, not the same character, but his name is Macrinus. Macrinus. Yeah, it's like Maximus, Macrinus, a lot of different, crazy names. But he's playing Macrinus. Then we have Connie Nielsen reprising her role as Lucilla. Oh, and the other new person I forgot to mention, Pedro Pascal, Marcus Acacius.
Yes.
So, yes. So some new people, some returning people. Alan, this is going to be a unique review in that we're going to jump right into, I think, the most crucial question. This film is an action adventure film.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, normally I have these big setups, but I'm just going to break it down to something you alluded to in the intro that you gave to the episode. Baboons, monkeys, rhinos, I think they're baboons. So baboons, rhinos,
Yes.
or sharks. What's your ranking of these three Colosseum action scenes?
Okay, good. I like this.
Because that's a crew. I mean, that's what these films are known for, Colosseum battles. So the baboons, the rhinos, or the sharks. And you did allude, yes, CGI is being used. There were not live sharks in the water inside the Colosseum.
So my of those three,
Yes.
I think what performed the best in the film. I personally think the sharks were more effective in terms of, because I like that battle scene because it was just interesting. It was they flooded the Colosseum floor with water and they kind of reenacted a ship battle between two sides and they had sharks swimming in the floor. I like that. I thought that was pretty good.
Well,
Then I'll go rhino.
Okay.
I'll go rhino next because I thought the rhinos were at least interesting looking, kind of a unique animal to see on the Colosseum floor. I got to give the baboons, the wild monkeys, the bottom rung. They did not work for me at all. So I think that at that point in the film, that was about 20 minutes into the film, we get the...
So that is one of the first. Yeah, that's
that's where I started to worry about this film.
Okay.
Because that whole bit did not work for me.
Okay.
So,
but it sounds like if that was 20 minutes in and these other battle scenes were later, maybe you did warm up to the film.
I think you're onto something there. I think as the CGI animals got better for me, the film thus also got better along the way. Now, I hadn't thought about it that way, but thanks for letting me frame it that way. This is a film that I do feel like has a lot of issues, has a lot of flaws.
Sure.
At the end of the day, it manages to cobble together something that I think is at least entertaining and at least has something unique going for it by the end. Although I'll tell you, the first half to 2/3 of this movie, I did not think we were going to get there. This is a movie that is slovenly dedicated to the memory of its predecessor
Yeah.
to an extreme fault, to the point where, look, I love sequels. I think sequels, when done well, are fun because, hey, we get to revisit characters that we've already met. We don't have to do all the setup with everybody as much. We get to just follow along and see what their next adventures or escapades are. And we can kind of expand on them. You can do some more character development with these characters. Sequels are great when done right. When they're just done as a, hey, let's just cash in on what worked this first time. Let's just do it again with different people in the roles and just tweak a few minor things, but otherwise people want to see this. That's where sequels don't work, or I think get a lot of critical derision out there from this. This movie is a movie of two halves for me, and that first half is exactly what I just described. It is, hey, let's just do Gladiator 1 again with a different actor. We're going to tweak just a couple minor things, but otherwise it's still basically the same story. And we're going to have as many callbacks to the first movie as we possibly humanly can. And so this first half of the movie, I was really bored, tired, kind of frustrated.
Okay.
It's like, no, please don't do this for the whole movie. Luckily for the film, about halfway in, maybe, on the latter half of the film, they start to realize that there's a slightly different story they could tell, a slightly different situation, a slightly different direction they could start to go in. And I really admired it for that latter half of the film, trying to be different and trying to be something unique. And yes, it was still worshiping on Maximus, the character from the first Gladiator, so much, even in the second half. But at least in the second half, they made a rhyme or reason for it. So it is a tale of two films for me. I overall, I'm going to come out generally slightly positive on this film.
Okay.
I do think it is definitely a lesser step down from the first Gladiator. There's no doubt about that in my mind. And yeah, I'm still going, Chris. I'm sorry. I'll kick it over to you here in a second.
You're fine.
The one other main thing I think that hurt this film or kept it from being anywhere close to the level of the first film is I struggled to find where this film had any real emotion or heart. I guess, it was kind of said in our discussions after the film last night. It was just missing that. And that you mentioned how the first Gladiator, everybody loves it because of the battles and the fights. I do love that movie. I don't love it because of the battles and the fights. I love it because I really generally like the story. It's a simple story, but I like that story in the first one. And I feel like there's true emotion in that story where when there are moments and beats where we're supposed to feel for certain characters, I totally felt it in the first movie. Did not feel it in this movie at all. So this is a spectacle movie. This is a movie that knows what it's trying to do. And it does have some great spectacle elements to it. And it is an epic film that Ridley Scott's put together. But it is missing its beating heart, which is what I think made Gladiator 1 for me special. And I just kept looking for it in this film. I never found it. And they want to have it. They're like leading you into scenes where like, no, we want the audience to be like caught up in this moment. And it just doesn't click for whatever reason, either because they don't commit to it enough or they don't have the right people saying the right words and the lines to make these things happen. I don't know what didn't make this happen, but I just walked out feeling very, very distant from the film, a little colder to the film. And that's not what this film could have been. So that's where I am with the film. Generally slightly on the positive side, but still, this is nowhere near the first one. So Chris, I'll turn over to you. I'm sorry, I took over for too long there. So
No, you're fine. So you used the word escapade, and now I've been able to think about is the Janet Jackson song Escapade, which is one of my favorite songs of hers, actually. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I love the song Escapade that she does. So now I'm going to try to block that out of my head.
I was a huge Janet Jackson fan in the day. That was track 10, I believe, on the Rhythm Nation 1814 album.
Which is also, good album. Okay, so returning to Gladiator II, I think you and I, we talked in the car ride back last night, and we're basically on the same page. And I had the feeling of, so the baboon battle does happen within the first 20 minutes, like you said. I was a little anxious from the get-go because with the opening credits sequence, which does kind of do a recap of the first film just with like this, animation style. And you kind of like, oh, here are the big plot points of the first film. And I was kind of fine with that. It's like opening titles or everything. Sure, whatever. I was fine with that. But the first time we see Paul Mescal, he's with his wife. And I was like, okay, spoiler alert, but it's not a spoiler alert because we know in the first film, Russell Crowe, they have this kind of bookends with like, there's family, it's important. He was taken away from his family, wife dies, all that. So in this, you see Paul Mescal with his wife, and they're like, they see battles off in the distance, and so they start arming themselves. And I'm like, okay, well, she's toast.
Yeah.
And I don't think I think everyone in the theater last night and who watched, I think you'll probably kind of get that too. And it kind of set the tone for like, yeah, we are going to basically hit a lot of the same beats that the first film felt. And sure enough, they have a battle scene, not in a Colosseum, but it's kind of a siege. Rome is taking over this.
Well, keep in mind,
territory.
the first Gladiator, the whole opening sequence is it's Maximus kind of as a general in the army, and they're fighting off, I forget which other group they are, but it's out kind of in a forest field area.
Right.
And it is a big spectacle battle scene, but it's meant to showcase this is who Maximus is. This is why the people around him respect him. And this is the relationship he has with the king or the emperor at the time.
Yeah.
So they're trying to do that same thing in this opening. Like, it's like beat for beat. It's like, okay, we want you to know who this guy is.
Right.
And we're going to show you fighting in this battle. And we're supposed to get a sense of what people think of him by this. And anyway, yeah.
And granted, I guess, like you said, they try to do it a little differently in that he's fighting against Rome instead of fighting for Rome, which is
True.
what Maximus. But still, you're kind of like, okay.
Yeah, you know where this is all kind of leading.
Wife passes away, and he kind of takes a reminder of her passing away with him on his
just like
the film.
was done in the first movie.
Yeah, so that was bothersome. Now, I alluded to earlier that Denzel Washington takes on Macrinus, who kind of is semi like the Oliver Reed character in the first film. And that his Denzel Washington was a high point of the film for me.
Yes.
Every time he was on screen, I think one of the first times we see him, he's kind of anticipating these gladiators, and he's like twiddling his fingers or whatever. He seems to just be really enjoying getting to play the role that he's playing.
Absolutely. I think, yes, I completely echo. I mean, I think all the acting in here is good.
Right.
We can talk about Paul Mescal in a little bit because I think there's some problems there. It's not Paul Mescal's fault. It's problems in the casting, I think. But Denzel Washington as Macrinus, he may be the reason to see this movie. Honestly, I could honestly say that. I think, yes, if you're a fan of the first Gladiator, you'll want to see this just because it is a lot more of the same.
And if you like the action scenes,
Yeah.
like if that's what you're looking for, well,
But
this
if you
does
have no interest in these movies, but you want to see a film that's got great performance in it, and I think somebody really just having fun with their role, it's Denzel Washington in this movie, and I'm sure we'll be talking about him as we start to talk in the future weeks about predictions for Best Supporting Actor nominations, but he's in the mix. And after seeing the film last night, I'm like, I totally get it because he is the most Denzel Washington-ish Denzel Washington in this film.
Sure.
And he's got all the right, it's the right facial expressions. It's the right reactions. It's the right tone of voice. And he is having a good time getting to play this character. And I love the fact that they let this character go into some very interesting directions that I did not anticipate. And that kept me engaged with that performance also, because I did not know where it was going for most of the film. And that was exhilarating. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me we just seen the film last night, so we haven't had a lot of processing time. And I think coming out, I was irritated that it hit, like we said, a lot of the beats. They were so beholden to the first Gladiator, like showing Russell Crowe on screen.
Yeah.
Mentioning his character Maximus.
Did not like that.
Mentioning his character Maximus, then showing a ring that had his name in it. Like, if you took a drink every time Maximus was mentioned or you saw his name, you see a shrine to him 2 different times at least.
Yeah.
I think you'd pass out by halfway through this movie because it's so behind. But as we're sitting here talking and I'm processing, there were things, the character arc of Macronus, Denzel Washington's character, it was more interesting than it could have been.
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal plays Marcus Acacius.
Also
His
interesting.
character arc is more interesting
Yes.
than it could have been. So but I think somehow so I think if they had been able to separate it from the first film and just let this more kind of stand alone and let those character arcs happen, this would have been a much better film.
And I think you could have done that. I think there's a story here. I mean, granted, obviously this story, it is a direct sequel. I mean, the story characters in this film were characters in the first film.
Right.
Things have transpired over the last 20 years. I get it. But I think Maximus could have been treated much more as a mythical figure that we didn't have to see and hear about as much. It's almost like
a little bit and then leave it.
Yeah, because I mean, I agree with you. Opening credits, we see flashes of like what happened in the first film. Great. Okay, we're all there. We got it on. We're on board. Now let's move forward with the story. And it just had a hard time wanting to do that. I mean, it just kept wanting to say, hey, remember that part in the first Gladiator when Maximus did this? Okay, we want to make sure you remember that because that was really important. And it was constant. So I don't think it needed it. I think the film didn't have the confidence it needed to just exist on its own. Let me talk. Can I talk about a couple? You mentioned Pedro Pascal, which I agree. I think he's good. And I think his character arc was more interesting than I expected on the onset. At the beginning of the film, the first 30 to 45 minutes, it seems like they're just going to run the hits of the Gladiator film, and everybody's playing the same part that their equivalent did in the first movie.
Right.
I like the fact that there are a couple of these character arcs like Pedro Pascal's and like Denzel Washington's that were a little different, that went in some different directions than I expected, and that reinvigorated the film for me about halfway through. Connie Nielsen, you mentioned, playing Lucilia, reprising her role. Mm-hmm. I got to say, A, I thought she was really good. And B, I was really happy that the film let her have a real good meaty role in this film and not just treat it as a cameo flashback role, which is what I thought it was going to be. And I was really happy to see that, no, she actually has a
beefed up role,
real fleshed out role in this film and kind of a pivotal role in this film. I'm like, great. And she was really good in that role. So good stuff all the way around there. Other one I'll mention, we had two people playing the co-emperors of Rome at the time.
Yeah, they split Joaquin Phoenix's character Commodus into basically two people.
Yeah, two people. We have Crazy and Crazier, were the two emperors, I think. Right. Joseph Quinn playing one of them, Emperor Geta, and then Fred Hershinger playing Emperor Caracalla. And I thought both were really good.
They were.
They didn't quite try to shoot for that Joaquin Phoenix phase, which I think was admirable. They're definitely going a little more, what's the word I'm looking for with their performance? It was very eclectic performances from both of them. They weren't going for heavy drama. They weren't trying to go for a giant melodrama swings like I think did in the first film,
right,
with the Emperor role. And their role was also a little less pivotal to the film. I mean, honestly,
and I think their role in the film, the people of Rome have kind of gotten fed up with them.
Yeah, they were on the outs, kind of with the public. So
so you kind of see that, and and they played that well. Like they were just kind of like you alluded, crazy and crazier, and they're just not making good decisions, and kind of. Not that they were comedic relief, but I guess in a way they kind of were because they're kind of seen as fools.
I guess that's what I'm saying is that their roles were not as dramatically heavy as the Joaquin Phoenix Emperor role was in the first film, where his was, Phoenix got derided a lot for his performance, although, he got some acclaim for it too, but I think people look at it as like a little over the top and trying to lean way heavy into the melodrama of the situation. These two this year in this film, no, there's no real melodrama there. It is just purely, yes, they are emperors that are despised by the people around them and have lost kind of touch of reality of how to actually run this country. And they were good. They were really good, I think, in that role.
I'd agree.
All right, so let's talk about Paul Mescal.
Okay.
If we can.
Yes.
Paul Mescal, I think he's a really good actor. I really liked him in...
After Sun or All of Us Strangers?
All of Us Strangers.
Got you.
And I thought he was an interesting casting choice for this role. However, I think the way the Lucius character is written and portrayed in this film, it doesn't work. That's my take on it. Is I think the film is going to have a hard time connecting with audiences because I think it's a hard time connecting with this character of Lucius.
I agree, and I think I was trying to figure out why it didn't work because, as you said, Paul Mescal, good actor.
Good actor.
He's been in other movies that we've liked. He's a good actor. In the trailer, we saw him all beefed up and with the uniform and the beard, and you're like, okay, yeah, I see.
I can totally buy him as yes. Mm-hmm.
And now, I think I can sum it up for why I feel like it didn't work.
Okay.
Because Paul Mescal is a good actor, but I don't think he's take a famous person and do this famous person. So, for instance, like Butler doing Elvis. Yep, that worked. He could become, or Joaquin Phoenix doing Johnny Cash. Yes. So in this sense, it's the character of Maximus from Gladiator, famous, iconic figure, won a lot of, won Oscars, acclaim. And Paul Mescal is not playing Maximus, but I think he's taking over, like embodying the gladiator that we're supposed to think about. And I think the way the script was written, it was supposed to be like, I feel like I'm watching Maximus, and no, he's not. He's so much of his own person that it just didn't seem to kind of fit. So getting kind of, simply put, maybe just miscast.
I think there's a little miscasting there. And also I think that just the character of Lucius in general in this film, I think they fumble a lot in it. Okay, you and I talked about this last night.
Sure.
The very first scene we see Lucius, we meet him, is an odd scene. He's kind of getting angry at some chickens or something, or trying to do some work out in the farm. And even his wife is like telling him to like calm down and chill out or whatever. And it was just a very odd, it's like we get this very rough personality. And I get that that's throughout the film. Even the Macronist, the Denzel Washington character, keeps referring to Lucius as rage. I see all this rage in you. And yeah, we get little senses of that. But then we get moments where I think they're trying to make Lucius seem more like Maximus, but it hadn't quite connected because he hadn't really earned that kind of perception yet. And then by the end, we're supposed to also believe that he's now completely become like Maximus, but that didn't really connect either. It's like, it's just something with the writing of this role and the performance they matched with it just didn't work. I never felt any sense of connection. The thing with Russell Crowe in the first Gladiator is, you knew within the first few scenes that you see him, you know who this guy is.
Right.
Like, I got it. I know his deal. The words he says, I understand what they mean about him. It's a character that you get kind of enamored with, by halfway through the film. Lucius here, I don't feel like it ever worked. So that in general just really helps. It hurts that emotional heart of the film that I said was missing, because you have to have that emotional connection to this main character, and we don't have it.
Right.
And then I think it's just, you keep finding yourself comparing him back to the first film, which is not fair.
No.
But that's what you do because you're trying to figure out, you're trying to find something to connect with on this guy.
In a sequel, you can't help but usually refer it back.
So I think it's just, again, I think Paul Mescal did the best he could with what he was given. I think the character in general had some sloppy writing behind it and couldn't decide, do we make this guy his own person, or do we want to make him just a clone of Maximus, or are we doing a weird hybrid in between? And it never quite settled on that. There's actually a turn, a personality turn on Lucius at one point in the film where we're supposed to believe that he now feels a different way towards some other people around him. And I did not buy it for 1 second, because nothing I've seen makes me believe that there was warranted that change. But that change is critical to the rest of the film. So it's like, it has to happen from a plot standpoint, but nothing in the character's writing and scripting, it makes me feel like that was earned in any way, shape, or form. So I think that may be the biggest fault of this film, is just that Lucius character, the way it was written and performed.
Which is a pretty,
It's important.
It's important.
And it just makes the whole film just not have that connection to the audience that I think it really sorely needed. So
we haven't talked a lot about director Ridley Scott, who did direct the first one. And, and I think he is 86 years old.
Amazing.
And I think it is amazing that he is still making movies and still making ones of this scope. Because, I mean, granted, it's not just he's one man out there doing everything. Yes, he has a huge crew, but just that he is the head director making all these things happen. It's very impressive to me that he's 86 and made this film.
Agreed.
I think he's still, he knows how to create a spectacle. He did it with Napoleon. He did it with this. The difference is, I think, or the weak point, as you mentioned, is the script and the Paul Mescal character, I think specifically. And other things, like you're saying, the Denzel Washington character worked. Pedro Pascal's character worked. The shared emperor role worked. Some interesting fight scenes do happen. Yes, sometimes CGI is a little irritating just because it's there, you use it, and maybe you shouldn't. But enough of it worked, but it just, I think where it falls short is kind of the script, like you were saying. And I will say we reviewed Napoleon when it came out last year, and that went to Apple TV Plus pretty quickly. I liked this overall better, and maybe it's because it's not trying to be, Napoleon, obviously a real person, it was trying to be more historically accurate and like give you a character portrayal, whereas this, is based more on an action movie. So if I'm giving a positive to this film as well, I always try to find positives. The film was 2.5 hours. And for me, it moved. Whereas I feel like that was one of the problems with Napoleon. It was a little sluggish for me.
Yeah.
But this, I felt like moved. So, and I think you and I guess, like you're saying, kind of maybe on the positive with the film.
No, I am still positive. I mean, look, it is still it's a really good spectacle, epic action film. It's got some great set pieces. It's if the first Gladiator film did not exist,
taking this solely on its virtues, which
I do think that would actually make this film a little better. I mean, it'd be a little harder to make this film work with all of the references to the first film. You'd have to really create some interesting backstory.
Right.
But it could work, and I actually think it would be better. I think the fact that the first one does exist and we're watching the second one hurts it, because the things that worked so well in the first movie didn't work here. And that's a shame. But, and I think it does hinge on that lead character, that lead performance role.
Sure.
And that lack of emotional connection to the film. But overall, it's still a rousing time at the cinema. I mean, look, not a lot of films look like Gladiator II. Not a lot of films feel like Gladiator II. It's still a fun, interesting film to watch. And, if you like, Jimmy, if you like Gladiator movies, this is a good Gladiator movie. I mean, it is good for that time period, for that culture, for the action and the adventure that goes along with it. It all works. It's just,
and it's,
it needed that extra element, that layer on top of it to elevate this to a great film.
Gotcha.
And it didn't have it. So it just has to hover in the okay to good film category. So,
yeah, at one point, Lucius, in kind of a prisoner revolting moment, has a sword and he's killing somebody. And he says a line, roughly, I'm not sure the exact wording, but a sword, whether metal or wood, still has a point. And I immediately thought, I wish this film had more of one. So that actually occurred to me while I was watching the film, which is not a good thing if I can think of things to say during a review when something as a response to a line of dialogue. Probably not good. But yeah,
well, that's a good line there, Chris.
Yeah,
really good. You've had a few really good lines in this episode. I just want to give you some credit on that. That was it was good, especially if it wasn't one you had to research or write out. I mean, it just came to you naturally.
Yeah,
so that was good.
While sitting in the theater.
Well, very nice. That is Gladiator II. Again, yeah, I'm going to come out on the generally positive. All right, just because I do get people asking. They like the star ratings. They like it when we kind of put a star rating to it, just because it kind of gives them a walking away knowing of this is where we are on a rating scale with this film. Because it could be easy to listen to this whole diatribe and then you're like, well, I don't really understand if Alan liked it or not. So the star rating kind of gives you that sense.
Well, and you and I, we like to think that we're generally nice people. So
for the most part.
So Yeah, we sometimes we may end up being more positive than we actually are on it. So star ratings just kind of give people a definitive where do you fall?
This is where we are.
Yeah.
I think I'm at 3.
Okay.
I think I'm at 3 on this. Maybe because of Denzel Washington, I could bump up to 3.5.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
And the more I think about it, the more I kind of want to see his performance again. And that would be the reason I would watch this movie again. I don't know if there's any other reason I would want to watch this movie again other than his performance. So I'm waffling between 3 and 3.5 because of the Denzel factor.
Fair.
But I'm definitely not any higher than that. This is not a 4-star movie. Where Gladiator, the first one, is in that 4.5-star level for me. So
I think I am less favorable to the film. And I think Denzel Washington is definitely worth giving an extra 0.5 star. My question is it up from 2 to 2.5, or is it from 2.5 to 3? That's kind of like, so I don't know. I'll have to sit with it a little more.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and just hone in. I'm at 3.
Okay.
I'm at 3. The more I think about it, I'm like, no, this film does not. 3.5 to me is the level where I can actually start recommending to people, hey, you all go check out this movie. It's pretty good. In this movie, I'm not there.
Got you.
So 3 stars for me.
Fair enough.
All right. 3 out of 5. Chris is at waffling between 2.5 and 3.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we average probably about 2.75.
Yeah.
I think that checks out.
And here's what I want to say to the movie-going public. Obviously, Alan and I always champion going to see films out at a theater because we just want theaters to survive. We like the whole theater-going experience, watching with an audience. And with the spectacles in this thing, the kind of, the Coliseum fights and everything, yeah, if you are the least bit interested, the theater is the place to see it just because it's up on the huge screen. It is more, impressive.
Agreed.
Obviously.
All right. Well, that is Gladiator II. I think it'll do pretty well box office wise.
Well, I hope so, only because I'm hoping for some weird reason that I get. I mean, he's 86. I want him, Ridley Scott, to do another Alien movie. I really do.
Supposedly he's supposed to be doing it.
I really, because I'm on the record. I really love Prometheus. Alien Romulus. Okay, but I just think something about the way he kind of, when he made Prometheus, he's like, I'm going to kind of do what I want here. And I think he did, and I really liked it. So for him to kind of take another stab at making another really interesting film. So maybe money from this will allow him to do that. Who knows?
We'll see. All right. Gladiator 2 in movie theaters now. We are slightly lukewarm positive on it. So, okay. Chris, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I've got a couple of trailers and news items to share, and then we'll end with our early predictions on the Best Picture race for the 2025 Oscars. So stay tuned. You're listening to Foot Candle Films here on The Mesh. We'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. Let's talk about a couple of trailers. And by trailers, I basically mean films coming out in the very near future. Obviously, if they're far enough along to have a trailer out, that means that they are within probably months of release. All right, so this first one, Chris, this honestly just came across my news feed this morning. And I am more of a curiosity about it than I am anything else.
Okay.
Is why I'm bringing it up.
Well, that seems to be a good thing. Curious means...
Yeah, maybe, but curious in a... Yeah, I'll explain what this all means when I introduce the film. So Disney has been doing this whole thing, and we've kind of had some slight bemoaning about it for years now, this whole adapting their classic animated films into live action versions.
Yeah, we have Snow White that's coming down the pike.
We do.
Right?
Snow White is coming next.
Or is that, I guess, or maybe Mufasa technically?
Well, the Lion King, the Mufasa, the Lion King prequel,
right,
is in that camp. I mean, it's not based off an animated. It's not a redoing of an animated.
Mufasa animated version that they did. Right.
But it's basically a quote prequel to the live action Lion King version that they did. Yeah. Anyway.
Right.
I'm not a fan of it. I haven't really found any of these live action adaptations to be anything more unique than the original animated version.
I think the one that I remember that you kind of liked was Jungle Book.
Yeah, the Jungle Book one was
But there again,
okay.
that was one of the earlier ones.
It was.
So.
And I actually found myself kind of in liking the really kind of odd Peach Dragon live action version that who was the director did that.
The same guy who did The Green Knight.
Yes.
And I'm blanking on his name.
I am
now.
too, unfortunately.
But,
But anyway, that I thought was at least interesting.
Lowery.
David Lowery, there you go. But all the other ones, the Aladdin, the Lion King, it's like, okay, here we go again. The Little Mermaid.
Cruella, the two Maleficents.
But that has kind of all been in the Disney camp all this time. Pretty much Disney movies doing that deal. Because Disney has had the classic animated films that they could rely on and pull from.
Sure.
So when I found the headline come across this morning that there is now a live action version of How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh.
Yeah. See, that was kind of my reaction too. This is Universal Studios. They had back in the 2010s. It was a successful franchise of animated films. I think 3 of them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I liked the first one. I actually think the How You Train Your Dragon was a fun movie. I liked it. I like dragons. I like the flying sequences, and I like the relationship between the young boy and the dragon. I liked it. I thought it was good. But yeah, so this is where they're going now. Universal released the trailer. It was the popular DreamWorks animation feature back when it came out as an animated film. So there is a teaser trailer out for this live action How to Train Your Dragon. And it's starring Mason Thames, who was in the Black Phone.
Oh.
He was the young boy in that film.
Okay.
He plays Hiccup, who's the lead young kid.
Right.
Nico Parker, I'm not familiar with her as Astrid. And then Julian Dennison from Deadpool 2 and from Hunt for the Wilder People.
Yeah.
He is playing as Fishlegs Ingerman, which is one of the kids, one of the friends. Gerard Butler is going to be playing the father. He voiced that character in the trilogy of the animated films, but he is going to be playing in the live action the father of this.
Okay.
But here's my biggest question or issue.
Who's it directed by?
Oh, that's a good question. Dean DeBlois, who wrote and directed all 3 animated films.
Huh.
So the same person who did the animated films is directing the live action.
Interesting.
The dragon, Chris. Let's just show the teaser trailer.
It's going to be CGI, Alan. It's not going to be a real one. Sorry.
I know.
They are going to rely on CGI.
I realized that, and I was disappointed to hear that.
Sure.
Here's my issue, and I will show you in the teaser trailer. The design of the dragon, exactly like the animated version.
Oh.
Like, exactly. So
it looks like the original Pete's Dragon did in Pete's Dragon, where they just like lifted an animated character and stuck it on film. It's like they've done that.
the animate with Pete's Dragon.
The original Pete's Dragon, the Disney version, there was live action, but then they drew.
Oh, right.
The dragon on the film. So hopefully it's not that. That would be an interesting route to take.
Well, my whole issue, just I didn't understand with this is, okay, you're making this more live action depiction of this animated story, but yet the main character, the dragon, looks exactly like he does in the animated film, like cartoonish almost.
Wow. Okay.
I don't get. Anyway, let's watch the trailer, the teaser trailer for DreamWorks How to Train Your Dragon, the live action version. Here we go.
When you carry this axe, you carry all of us with you.
Dad, I can't kill dragons.
But you will. I'm a Viking. I'm a Viking!
All right. That truly was a teaser, very, very short trailer, but you get the sense of, kind of where they're going with this. And again, I just find myself asking, why?
Yeah, I think that's I understand what you're saying. Like, it's not like cell animation drawn, but it just looks so.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, it's exact CGI. I mean, the original animated was a CGI film, and this one is that same
It just yeah.
Why would you make the dragon look exactly like it did in anime when you have a chance to make something even more realistic looking
right.
to match the rest of the film? And I don't know. I'm confused by that. But anyway.
And I guess
unfortunately it feels like it's a marketing thing. It's like, well, everybody knows the look of that dragon.
We got to make Toothless look really,
we don't
really
want we don't want the dragon to look more realistic and be scary looking or whatever. It's like, no, let's make him just as playful and fun as looking as before.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, I wasn't really that into the original ones. Or, I mean, they were fine, but I am left kind of wondering, why? Because if you're doing everything so similar, why wouldn't people just go for the animated one? I don't know.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, that's coming out in June.
Okay.
So, How to Train Your Dragon, a live action. If it's successful, Chris, that means that we have crossed over. We are no longer just in Disney territory for making live action versions of animated films.
Right.
I don't know if we'll be expecting an Iron Giant live action movie. I don't know if we'll be expecting a Shrek. Yeah, that's actually possible. I mean, again, I asked why, but
I guess they think, and I guess they're proven right, that enough people are just curious about how they'll pull it off or something, or...
Yeah, because it is a curiosity. That's kind of the whole deal behind it. It's like you don't go because you want to see, I want to see how they tell the story differently. No, everybody wants to see the same. It's the same story. Right. It's like, so why would you go? It is a kind of a curiosity. How are they going to make this animated film be a live action version? Right. So, all right. I was just more surprised when I heard that announcement.
You said you were curious, but didn't mean it was. Yeah,
doesn't mean it's in a good way.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on and talk about one other trailer that I haven't got to watch yet, but I am very, very also curious about, but in a good way. You and I have both seen the film The Substance.
Yes. They're doing an animated version.
Yes, that's right. They're going the other direction.
Okay.
It's going to be a fully animated
awesome.
CGI version of the Substance. No, what The Substance has got a lot of press for because it's Demi Moore.
Yeah.
Kind of coming back. She was obviously a icon actress, 80s and into 90s. Big movie star, but we also haven't seen her in a lot of things in the last, 15 years. So she comes back. She makes this kind of big showy performance in The Substance, playing an aging actress. And, I think the film got a lot of acclaim or attention because of that. And then it's gone on to get some attention for other aspects of the film and the film itself. But it is interesting. I think we're seeing a little bit of a renaissance of some of these actresses, especially ones that we're seeing more as sex symbols, maybe than necessarily, quote, actresses back in the day, coming back and now getting into some actual acting. And Pamela Anderson is the one I'm going to bring up that kind of fits this mold here. There's a film now, the trailer's released, and we're going to watch it here in a second, called The Last Showgirl. It is Pamela Anderson. That is, yes, that Pam Anderson, the one that's Baywatch, some of the movies that she was in back in the 90s. Big
Barbed Wire.
Barbed Wire, was one. Big international sex symbol. Tommy Lee, the whole relationship thing, had a mini series about her and that relationship. Anyway, she is an actress in the film The Last Showgirl. It takes place in Las Vegas. And it's Pamela Anderson starring as Shelley, a veteran showgirl who finds herself at a crossroads with her stage production on its last legs. So again, kind of getting this whole idea of someone who had a heyday back in the day, and now she's kind of at the later stages of a career, trying to either make a little bit of a comeback or trying to make some sort of statement about her work. So again, I kind of relate it to the Demi Moore performance we got in The Substance. It sounds like they're going for a little bit of that same feeling here. This has got a really interesting cast along with it. Kiernan Shipka, Brenda Song, Billy Lord, Dave Bautista, and Jamie Lee Curtis are all also in this film.
Okay.
And I'm just saying the early critics who have seen this film, Variety's Peter DeBruge says, Anderson's performance is a, quote, force of nature. So that I'm interested to see. So The Last Showgirl, we're going to show the trailer for that right now, and we'll talk about it here on the other side.
Places, please. Places, please. This is your place's call for the final performance of the Razzle Dazzle.
I mean, Las Vegas used to treat us like movie stars. These costumes, sets. We were ambassadors for style and grace. The Las Vegas showgirl.
All right. So that was the trailer for The Last Showgirl. And yeah, I was remiss in not mentioning Gia Coppola was director. So obviously the word Coppola you hear in the name. There's some family connection there. I'm not familiar with Gia Coppola. Are we familiar with them at all?
I have seen, she's made a couple of films. The last one I saw, I think was a 2020 release called Mainstream, and it had Andrew Garfield, and it was about like kind of a YouTube, since people trying to take advantage of YouTube and like become stars, become famous. So that I've only seen one of the film from her. But yeah, I had not really heard a lot about this film. So interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm on board. I'm excited to see it. So again, I love any film where we get to see a different aspect of an actor or actress, performer in any way that we hadn't seen before. And looks like we're actually getting a great performance out of Pamela Anderson, which I never would have thought I would have said over the last 20 years. So, yeah.
To me, it looks like Gia Coppola is giving us kind of a Sean Baker, Quentin Tarantino hybrid.
It does have a lot of that.
Let me explain what I mean by that. Tarantino taking actors, John Travolta, who you haven't seen in a while, and putting him in something like Pulp Fiction. So that's kind of taking Pamela Anderson and putting her into something like this. But then kind of the showgirl aspect, taking something that people see maybe as laughable or not as glamorous and all that. That's kind of a Sean Baker thing, like making those people real. So, yeah, and even some of the shots look very Sean Baker-esque to me. So, yeah, interesting.
Well, I'm very, very interested in the film. Does it have on there listed what the release date is? Do you still have that YouTube video? Okay, all right. I can't remember what the release date was on that. Shoot. Well, I wish I knew. If only we had, our intern here today, but he took the day off.
He did. So he's waiting in line to get Wicked tickets probably. So there's another.
That's what he's doing.
Yes, I'm sure.
The Last Showgirl is scheduled to be released January 10th.
Oh,
so coming out very soon here.
Got you.
I would imagine probably limited release. But yeah, we will see. And then Gia Coppola, director, did Palo Alto in 2013. That's right. I've seen that.
Okay.
Mainstream, you mentioned 2020. Yeah, I think that's the two films that she's done. So.
Got you.
Okay. All right. Well, we will see how The Last Showgirl ends up coming when it comes out in January. All right. Last thing I want to do, Chris, is November. We're getting very close to the end of the year.
Yes.
There's still some films to come out between now and December. But just so everybody's on the same calendar here, we're talking that nominations for the Academy Awards, the pinnacle of film achievement awards in my mind.
Yes.
Get announced, in like late January?
I think so. And then the awards are in March.
Early March.
They've announced Conan O'Brien.
Which I think is great. I think it's exciting about that. So we're about 2 months away from nominations, and there will still be some films being released, but it's not too early, I don't think, to start talking about where are we shaping up right now. I kind of ask this question occasionally on the show. What do we think are kind of rising to the top as the quote best films of the year, at least from a general consensus? So I always look to Variety. That's like my go-to publication. I think they're reporting on everything, and their predictions on the Oscars are normally pretty good. And they have put together their predictions as of now. And of course, these are subject to change, but Are
you telling me that if I want to cheat on our Oscar contest that we have at the end of the year when we have the Oscars and we have our Foot Candle Society group, that I should try to look to fill my ballot? I should look to Variety.
I'm going to say that I can either confirm or deny that I may use the Variety predictions when filling out my Oscar ballots.
Got you.
My predictions anyway.
Okay.
So let's just focus in on one category. Maybe in the next few weeks, we'll talk about some of the other ones like the actor, actresses, and so forth, and director. But right now, let's just focus in on Best Picture. Okay. The big enchilada. Because I think this is an interesting list of predictions for Best Picture nominees for this year.
And they do 10 for this, right? That's kind of
Well, I think the rule is they can do up to 10.
Up to 10. They don't have to do 10.
The Academy is not obligated to do 10. They could do 9. They could do 7. They could do whatever. I think it's just up to 10 is kind of the
Because it used to be everything was 5.
It was 5.
Okay, gotcha.
And the reason they expanded it, at least in the backstage lore, is that films like The Dark Knight, being like one of the biggest films of the year at the time, and also very populist, people like that film. With just 5 nominees, a film like that wouldn't have made the cut for Best Picture nominee, and they were losing audience because the 5 top typically tended to be more artsy and more independent films.
Serious films, right?
By broadening it out to up to 10, they could include more mainstream films in the mix and keep people engaged with the awards show and ceremony. That was kind of the thinking behind it, I think. So I'm going to list out the 10 films that right now Variety is saying this is their current, as of here, November 20th, their estimated date for predictions for Best Picture nominees. And we'll just kind of bat through these and see how our takes on it. I'll go ahead and say, I know you and I have seen 1, 2, 3, 4. We've seen 4 of them collectively together, and you have seen another 1, maybe 2 of these beyond that.
Okay.
And there's still 2 or 3 of these that have not been officially released yet, so we're not able to have seen them. So, Okay, here we go. Anora, we actually reviewed last week on that Sean Baker film that you just mentioned. Sean did a name drop of Sean Baker a minute ago.
Okay.
Anora is on the list of potential Best Picture nominees. Blitz. Blitz is a film that is an Apple original films on Apple TV. We have not seen that.
I think it's coming out November 22nd.
Okay, so here very, very soon.
Yeah.
So that'll be one that at least I know we'll be able to catch up with here soon. Mm-hmm. But that has already got some buzz behind it as a potential Best Picture nominee. That's Steve McQueen, director. Saoirse Ronan is a co-star in it. She's not the lead.
Okay.
Because she's being possibly kicked around as Best Supporting Actress for that film as well. Okay. Then we have a film, The Brutalist. This is one you mentioned a few weeks ago, and we watched the trailer for. It's got a long, epic film. I think it's like almost 3 hours, or right at 3 hours, or is it closer to 4?
I think it may be
like
closer to
3 and a half
4.
hours. It's an A24 film, but that is getting some early buzz to say yes, this could be in the mix. And definitely from the trailer we watched, it looks like it could be
Adrian Brody's.
Yeah, Adrian Brody is the starring role in that. It definitely looks like a Best Picture nominee, at least on the surface. Conclave, which we reviewed several weeks ago with Ray Fiennes. That is
nice refraining from saying it like Conquest from the White Stripes.
Oh, I know. I keep wanting to say that. I have found myself singing
since you mentioned
Conclave
that's the only way
to the tune of Conquest.
Yeah, that's the only way I can hear it in my head. So.
That is by Focus Features, their film. So we'll circle back to that in a second.
We're looking at 2 right now that we've
seen Anora and Conclave out of the 4 so far. All right.
Yeah, okay.
Here we go, number 5. And then let me run through these, and then we'll kind of go back and give our analysis.
Yeah.
Dune Part 2.
Okay.
And keep in mind that was released this year. That was early this year it came out. Obviously the sequel to Dune Part 1. Mm-hmm. Then we have Amelia Perez. Now, this is a film that I brought up in our news section months ago when it premiered at Cannes. Mm-hmm. And we talked about how it was getting so much attention. It is a musical dealing with the drug trade and transgenderism, and
most importantly, how long of a standing ovation did it get at Cannes?
I don't remember. It was a long one. Okay. It was considered a big standing ovation at the time. But it's also gotten some divisive feedback from what we've seen early critics. It is a Netflix film. It is coming out, I think, in the next week, if I remember correctly. So that will be available also for us to see. I don't think it's available today. I think it will be soon, though.
Okay.
All right. So that's Amelia Perez. That is Zoe Saldana. It's
Odiar. Is that how you say his last name? Or not Odiar, but
Are you talking about the director?
Director.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
And then Selena Gomez
Okay.
is also in this.
Got you.
Okay, so that's Amelia Perez. Gladiator II, which we reviewed at the first half of this film, this podcast episode by Paramount Pictures. Gladiator II is rumored to be in the mix right now for Best Picture.
Okay.
The Room Next Door. Now, this is the Pedro Almodovar film that we played the trailer for a couple months ago. Julianne Moore and
Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton. And that one is also being in the conversation. And then Wicked. Our beloved Wicked
now, what
coming
is that
out this
again?
weekend. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a film has
Sure.
to do with the Wizard of Oz stuff. Right. That is by Universal Pictures. That is also being early rumors of it being in the Oscar race. Okay, so that is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 10.
Okay, so in theory, 10.
10 predictions that Variety is making. Now, granted, these are predictions.
Sure.
They're not all going to be exactly right, but it's normally a pretty good stab at it. Chris, which one? And I already gave you the answer to this, so just pretend like you don't know the answer.
We something again in the car ride we talked about, but
You already know the answer, but just
Right.
pretend like you don't.
Sure.
Which one of these 10 films do you think Variety is already predicting will be the winner of Best Picture out of these 10 films?
I probably would go with Conclave.
Okay.
For the reasons I think we kind of talked about. Maybe we talked about on the show when we reviewed the film. I mean, it's PG, which is interesting, but it's, so not that it's a family film, but it's not offensive. It's kind of a thriller, but in a safe way. There are a bunch of good actors in it. Ray Fiennes gives a good performance. So yeah, I would probably go with Conclave.
Okay. And my apologies, Chris. I skipped one film listing. A Real Pain, which you have seen.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg,
Kieran Culkin.
Mm-hmm. That is by Searchlight Pictures. A Real Pain. That is also in the mix, number 10 on the list there.
Happy to see it in the list.
So here's what we'll do then. So Variety went one step further and said, okay, yeah, those are the 10 in kind of alphabetical order, but here is their ranking on likelihood to win of the 10. Honora is number 1. So their prediction is that Honora. Honora's going to win.
That surprises me.
Yeah.
But,
I'd be down with that. I think it'd be great, but it is a daring choice, I think, for Best Picture winner, but we'll see. Conclave they have as number 2. So they do believe, I do too. Conclave, I think, has got a safer pathway to Best Picture. Honestly, if you told me right now, said, Alan, you've got to go ahead and tell me who is going to win Best Picture, like right now today, I'm going to go Conclave.
And I think the problem I have fallen into in the past, filling out my ballot, which, hey, apparently my number 1 problem is I do not consult Variety. But my second problem is I tend to either go with things that I want to win and that nobody else does, or I kind of go down the critic rat hole where critics can really like something, but they are the only people that really champion it. And so like I can see Honora, lots of movie critics like it. We like it, but people seem to be over the moon. But are those the people that are actually Academy voters? I guess that's where my question lies.
All right.
So.
Good question. So after Honora and Conclave, Amelia Perez, they have listed as third.
Okay.
Third, most likely.
That surprises me.
Yeah, agreed.
Because of some of the controversy you've talked about in the varying reviews.
The Brutalist, they have as fourth. This one, okay. I was willing to give it a shadow of a doubt before I saw the film last night. Oh. They've got Gladiator II as number 5. And I don't see it. I don't see it.
I don't either.
I don't see it. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't get nominated.
Okay.
Because I think it's just missing too many elements to make it that Best Picture category. So, yeah.
Even with the expanded field of 10, you feel like it's still okay.
I do. I mean, yeah. They've got Wicked as number 6.
Okay.
So in the top 6 of there are 2 big movies. Gladiator and Wicked. Both are going to make a lot of money and get a lot of audiences. So,
I assume so.
Dune Part 2 they have as 7th on the list. Blitz is 8th. The Room Next Door is 9th, and A Real Pain is 10. So, not giving a lot of credence behind some of those films making it to win the award. Right now, it seems to be kind of in the Honora, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Brutalist category as far as where things could go. Again, we haven't seen Amelia Perez. We haven't seen the Brutalist, so we can't really comment on those.
Right.
But at least between Honora and Conclave, yeah, I'd like to see Honora win. I liked Honora better than Conclave, but I also think Conclave is probably a safer, more amenable pick for Best Picture.
Got you. Yeah. Yeah. Understood. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Agreed. So that is what Variety has got predicted for Best Picture. So, Chris, you and I have our list of films we still need to make sure that we're accelerating our catch up on here in the next couple months.
Right.
Definitely need to be seeing Amelia Perez. We'll find out when that's coming out on Netflix, and I'm sure we'll probably have a review of that whenever it does. The Brutalist, that is a theater release, I believe. A24. So hopefully we'll have a chance to see it.
I don't know if it's been released yet. I don't know.
Don't know either.
I mean, they need to hurry up and release it so we have time to watch it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, 3.5 or whatever hours,
Blitz will be Apple TV coming out this weekend. So something to check out there.
I'm curious with that because I'm reminded of the Apple TV Plus release Coda.
Yeah.
That kind of came out. And it was an okay film, but there was not, I didn't really know anything about it.
Right up to the top.
And then all of a sudden, boom, it won Best Picture, right?
Yeah.
And Blitz, granted, what it has for it is Steve McQueen, which is a known quantity, 12 Years a Slave. Like he's a big deal.
Yeah.
But I hadn't really heard anything. Actually, and the only mention of Saoirse Ronan I'd heard was the film The Outrun. So that's what I'd heard. But and then suddenly, granted, you're saying she's supporting in this.
Yep.
But so I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So Blitz we'll need to catch up with. The Room Next Door is a theatrical release.
Okay.
Sony Pictures Classics. So that and The Brutalist are going to be the ones we got to try to hunt down and find a way to see because they're probably not going to play at the theaters here in our area. So
True.
We're going to be relying on critics, screeners, links, or other ways to see it. And Real Pain, you've already seen. I still need to see it, but it has been playing here locally. So just 2 films we got to hunt down in theaters or screening links. The others will be online available. So that's good. I don't want to go on too much longer, Chris, but Variety does have their next 10 in line, like 11 through 20 potentials.
Okay.
I'm just going to list these out.
And I'm curious. I'm guessing these are ones I've probably seen.
A little bit more. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, of the ones that have come out, there's some of these that still have not had official releases yet. So we wouldn't have seen them anyway.
Okay.
Actually, these next 5 we would not have seen yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me hear them.
A Complete Unknown. That's the Bob Dylan biopic with Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah,
that is one that could squeak in there.
Interesting that it's not in the top 10 though. But okay.
Anyway, again, this is all Variety's predictions.
Right.
Sing Sing, which is a film that we A24 release. Coleman Domingo with that. September 5. Have you heard about this film? It's a depiction of the Munich games with the terrorist hostage situation that went on, and basically the sports broadcasters, sports broadcasting having to deal with how to report and deal with that situation. It looks really interesting. It's one of those that seems to be almost like a real time kind of everything happening within the couple hours of the film time frame. It looks interesting from the trailer, but it is being batted around as a potential a little bit of a dark horse for a Best Picture.
Even though it's not a sequel, because obviously, but all I thought about when I saw it was right, this is the whole Munich that that film has been, and I thought that was a good film. So, but I guess this is just showing a different aspect.
Well, it's from the sports world because again, this was during the broadcast of the Olympics, and it seems to be a lot taking place in the control room of the broadcast of the Olympics, and so I think it's an interesting take on that.
Right.
Number 14, meaning they're 4th on the backup list of potential nominees, Nosferatu, the David Eggers.
Okay. I would think that's probably a long shot, but you never know.
Never know. I think it'll probably get a lot of love for production design, costuming, some of the effects and all, but
and maybe script, depending on how many
could be
things they do with it. But
Inside Out 2 was down there on the list. I think that's a long shot, but I'm Still Here by Sony Pictures Classics. That is, I don't know that film. I'm like, wow, I don't know that one.
That's not the Joaquin Phoenix.
No, that's I'm Not Here. No.
I don't know. But it's not the one where he pretended he was quitting acting.
Well, no, that was
Like,
that was years ago, and it's
Right,
also
right.
not the
Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan where different people are playing
Todd Haynes
the
made.
Todd Haynes film.
Right.
I'm still
I'm
here.
Still here.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
I-
not familiar with that.
I do not know this one. All right, we have to check that out. The Wild Robot is mentioned as
I'm
a
familiar with that.
obviously an animated
I
film,
think
but
that'll definitely be in top 5. Best animated feature. Will it sneak into Best Picture? Yeah, maybe.
Saturday Night.
Really?
Yeah. Now, granted, I love that movie, but I'll be the first to say it's not a Best Picture nominee, but I do love that movie. The Piano Lesson, which I believe you saw.
No, it's coming to Netflix.
Oh, okay. So it's a Netflix film, so it
Yeah.
hasn't come out yet. So.
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
it's on the horizon.
And then number 20, their last on this list was Challengers. Now, that is the one.
yeah.
That is the one of this whole list. I'm like, you know what? That should have been up in the top 10 list for me.
Yeah, because when that came out, it was like buzzy all over
Yes.
the place. Luca Guadagnino, and yeah.
I say take Gladiator 2 out and replace it with Challengers, and I'm happy with that list. So, Challengers is the one. As I look at this 11 through 20, I'm like, yeah, Challengers should be in the top 10 in my estimation. And then there's still several of these we haven't seen: A Complete Unknown, Sing Sing, September 5, Nosferatu, I'm Still Here, The Wild Robot, and The Piano Lesson. So yeah, actually, like a majority of these films we haven't seen yet.
Okay, got some homework to do.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm okay with the top 10 list the way it is, although I would just take Gladiator 2 out of the mix and put in Challengers, and then I'd be fine.
So I stated what I thought would win before I knew that. Like, if you didn't know,
If I didn't know,
what from those 10, would you have picked Honora?
no. As far as what I thought would win,
Yeah.
no, I would have said Conclave.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Conclave is the safe bet. I think Variety might be is a little daring and hopefully maybe a bit optimistic and maybe on the factual side that Honora could win. Because again, I'd love to see that happen. I'd love to see Sean Baker win
Yeah.
Best Picture. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
So just for his filmmaking style and the subject matter he typically tackles, it'd be a really interesting win.
It would be.
Conclave, I think, is a safer bet. If I was in Vegas betting on it, I'd be going more the Conclave route. So
Okay, fair enough.
okay, well, we got a few more months before we find out for sure how this is all going down. We'll talk about some of the other categories in future episodes as we lead up to the nominations. So I think that wraps us up for today, Chris.
Okay,
We're ready to
good.
go. If anybody wants to comment on anything we've talked about, Gladiator 2 coming out this weekend, if somebody goes to see it and has some thoughts, that echo or contrary to ours, we'd love to hear from you. Or any other topic we talked about, how can they get a hold of us?
You can send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can also follow us on Facebook at Foot Candle Film Society, Instagram and Threads, we're Foot Candle Film, and we are on Blue Sky as well. Al and I are on Letterboxd, where we just try to track what we're seeing and leave quick takes. And if you will do us a favor, do us a solid, as the kids maybe still say, give us a star rating, write a review, share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcasts on, because it could help us reach new listeners, and we'd appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks everybody so much for listening to this episode of Foot Candle Films. We'll look forward to talking to you next time about more movie reviews, movie news, upcoming trailers. Chris will probably have some recommendations for us as we get closer into the holiday season. So stay tuned. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.